This week's episode is brought to you by Balls of 10 Season 2, Bigger, Bolder, Badass. Streaming now on YouTube at Post Hysteria, or just go to posthysteria.com and get caught up on this season of Balls of 10 Season 2. Hey, we're flying solo today.
Yes.
We don't have a TD.
We don't.
Mm-mm. No.
He's had enough of us.
He has.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you're virtual. I don't need to be here. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. But I'm excited about our guest. You know our guest.
I do. When I made my first documentary feature, I hired her to run a camera. Yeah. At the mountain biking camp. It's like, I tried to get people who actually rode mountain bikes, but Goldie didn't ride mountain bikes. Are you surprised by that?
No, why would I be surprised?
I don't know.
Because she's white?
Shouldn't.
I don't know the question. Are you assuming that I think all white people like ride mountain bikes? Like I don't know where this is going.
No.
Anyway,
I can't even know. I meant surprised that I would hire someone to run a camera who couldn't ride a bike when it was a women's mountain bike camp. That is what I was trying to ask you.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Anyways,
there's not that many people that can run a camera that also ride mountain bikes
who are white.
It turns out I didn't. There was no specificity of melanin in my ad requesting cinematographers.
Well, that's cool.
I had one that could ride.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I could tell stories about that, but I won't.
Okay.
Not live, because wow.
Yeah.
What if? Yeah. I'm just gonna say meat.
So, welcome to the show. I'm Tonya. This is my very inappropriate co-host.
Sidekick. Don't mess up my title.
Shal.
Wow.
Shal. Welcome to the short of it, where we talk short films and short...
just short shit.
Just short shit.
Short shit. That's what we're going to say from now on. Short shit.
Well, we can't say that all the time because we are in different...
Oh, right. When we're on the stupid radio, we won't say short shit. We'll say short bleep.
Which now I have to spend some extra time doing. But anyways...
Well, actually, that's my nickname on the radio show is Rochelle Bleep Dermer.
It is.
That's what Ray Thomas calls me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As he should. Aptly named.
Wow,
Absolutely.
he said aptly.
He did.
That's a 2-syllable word. I don't know.
Anyways... Goldie Jones, welcome to the short of it.
Yeah, welcome. I haven't seen you. Well, I have on Facebook and other places, but we haven't spoken since I met Goldie in 2005 when I was making Commit to the Line at Whistler Mountain Bike Camp. And Goldie lived in Seattle, and she and her boyfriend trudged up to Whistler and ran a camera. And I got the bonus boyfriend did some audio work. So it was cool. Really great. But like, I mean, you were so young then, and I've watched, so was I, but I've watched you over the years, and you started a media company, the Subversions, and from what I could tell, were incredibly successful with that. And then, I was watched the Seed and Spark contributed to that, and was very excited to see that film, and just really have enjoyed seeing your sort of rising star. You've done the thing, right? The hard thing, which is like.
You did that thing, girl. That's what she's trying to say. You did that thing.
Yeah, legitimately. Like I'm very impressed with all you've done, and now I understand that you live in LA. Was that I want to be?
I do.
Yeah. So was that an I want to be in industry? Closer to the industry.
Well, I mean, you met me right as I was coming into my commercial career, and I spent a really long time in Seattle doing commercial production and working as a DP and an editor and an animator. and then moving into directing in the commercial world. And then I eventually felt like I had learned everything I could possibly learn from commercial production and really wanted to get back to my first love, which was narrative. And in 2018, my script started doing really well in competition. I had one script that, took second place at Slamdance and at Cinequest and was doing really well and getting a lot of buzz. And then in 2020, I ended up being a finalist for the Universal Writers Program. So I went out to LA for that week that they spend with the finalists doing like networking events and interviews and pitches and the whole 9 yards. And that was when I decided that it was time for me to move to LA at that point. But of course, it was 2020. And that Friday is when Seattle went into quarantine because of COVID. And I was splitting my time between New York and Seattle at that point. So I went back to New York just in time for New York to go into quarantine. So I didn't leave my building for 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
And then once my lease was up there in New York, I got a camper van and I drove across country to LA, and I've been here ever since. Yeah.
I think the film, I'm Sorry I Tried, I Love You, very much to me is related to the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
Absolutely.
that was my read of it, and I'm not familiar with the short story, but the mobilization of it as a film is really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, the funny thing is the short story was actually written by my friend Gigi Silverman before the pandemic. And it's actually based on something that actually happened to her. She had something malfunction in her house and it sprayed fiberglass crystals all over her house.
Yeah.
And her house became basically uninhabitable. And she literally had to get up in a hazmat suit and like meticulously clean her house every day and go room by room to make her house habitable again. And it inspired this short story that ended up getting published during the pandemic and just happened to be like the right story to really hit home with a lot of people who felt like they were going through really similar experiences. And when I read it, the short story just really stuck in my head. And I was already talking to my producer, James E., about doing a short because we were trying to develop a feature and we wanted to do a short as kind of a proof of concept to show what I could do with narrative work. And I mentioned the story to him and that I really wanted to adapt it. And I asked her permission, Gigi Silverman, the author of the short story, I asked for her permission to adapt it and she was absolutely all for it. And I sat down and wrote the script for it in like 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Because it was just that in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it
Yeah,
really
and then-
touched on a lot of the themes also that everybody was dealing with during the pandemic. And that's, relationships and how much you can bear and how much you can, Rochelle introduced your film to me when I was a student in her class a few years ago. And just that, just so much that everybody was kind of, going through during that time, even though, she didn't write it about COVID, but it really resonated with the themes of family and relationship and how much you can be in a space with someone, right?
Yeah.
And all of that, just kind of like wonderful foreshadowing in a way of what was to come. And I wonder, like, as you were putting the film together now that, and then all of a sudden we're in this thing, how much of it did you draw upon creatively to, enhance the story?
I mean, there definitely is a lot of those themes of like the isolation and like the world getting really small. And a lot of how we shot it was very intentional around that. How the main character's face, played by the amazing Finnerty Steves, that some people may know from Orange is the New Black. Just how isolated she was because she was the only one in focus. Everyone else was in the background and really out of focus and just really wanted to make the world as claustrophobic and isolated as possible visually as we could while we were shooting the film. And that like paranoia that came with COVID and like the germophobia and the constant cleaning and but also beyond COVID and, the pandemic and quarantine, it was really a conversation for me about like the monotony of domesticity and the expectations of motherhood and parenthood. And the interesting thing that came up when I was talking to Gigi Silverman about her short story was how many men actually really connected with the story during the pandemic, because for the first time, a lot of men found themselves isolated in the home with the children in a way that they hadn't really experienced before, because that had been so traditionally like thrust onto the women in the relationship.
Minds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something we could all suddenly relate to, just being caught in these like loops of caretaking and cleaning and like hyper focus on the details. So it really was like the perfect moment for that story.
I think one of the things that I was really interested in is that you ran a successful Seed and Spark fundraiser, which I have looked at Seed and Spark and been completely intimidated by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of our audience is sort of aspiring filmmakers or young filmmakers. So would you mind sort of talking about that process of fundraising?
Yeah, sure. That's actually one of 3 successful crowdfunding campaigns that I've run. That was the most that I've raised in one crowdfunding campaign. We ended up getting, I think, 14,000 through the Seed and Spark campaign. And we ended up getting like 117% of our goal, because I think we were aiming for 12,000. And maybe the math might not be perfect on that, but I think that's what I'm vaguely
We got you.
remembering.
We got you.
Yeah. Don't hold me to it, but it was something like that. And we ended up being like a featured project. And that's actually been true of all 3 projects, like crowdfunding campaigns that I've done. I did one on Kickstarter. Back when I used to run a circus school, I did a crowdfunding campaign for an aerial dance festival. And we were a Kickstarter like recommended project for that one as well. And then the short film. And then I also did a crowdfunding campaign for a podcast that a couple of other writers and I did more recently that you may have seen. That's kind of a sci-fi and horror, like feminist Black Mirror series, scripted episodes that are all 10 minutes or less. And, what I have found to be the most helpful in all of the campaigns is to have someone on your team that already has some kind of a following. So if you're ever going to crowdfund, either start building your own following now, or find people in your team who have developed a following. Because with the Aerial Dance Festival, someone who was on my team who was really helping build the festival and promote the festival and promote the crowdfunding campaign was, an aerialist who had like tens of thousands of followers on Instagram. Oh, wow. So she had an established audience. And with I'm Sorry I Tried, I Love You, Gigi Silverman had spent years as an author building up a following. So she had a very enthusiastic and active audience to reach out to when we started promoting it. And then with the podcast, the other writers on my team, had their own fan bases that followed them. So we were all able to draw on our own audiences. So if you don't have an audience, start building one now. Just start posting on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. The more of an audience you can build for any of your endeavors is really helpful on all fronts at this point, as much as people might hate it.
We need to get more friends.
And if you hate social media and you don't want to do it, get someone on your team.
Get someone who does. Yeah. Really, no, that's so true. That's so true. My wonderful co-host here can attest to that. And I think our audience would also kind of like to get your perception of like, what do you feel like doesn't work with crowdsourcing campaigns? Because we see millions of them. A lot of the students that we have, that I went to school with and that Rochelle works with and teaches, all try and do these campaigns. And some of them are like just, maybe a couple $1,000s at the most or whatever. And again, like you said, they rely on family members and, your rich uncle who you haven't talked to in a while and those type of things. But what would you consider to be like one of the don't do this rules of crowdsourcing?
Be really positive in what you're sharing and posting, and be consistent about sharing and posting. Every milestone you hit, share about that, celebrate that. People want to be a part of something exciting, and if you can make them really feel like they're part of it, that's really helpful, versus being like, oh my god, we haven't raised enough money, we're not going to make it unless you like jump in and help right now. Focusing on the positive and the wins and the celebrations, draw people in. Prepare before you launch your crowdfunding campaign. Be really prepared before. Build your email list. Go through everyone you know who you think might be even remotely interested. One thing that I do before we ever launch the campaign, I will put together an email list of every single person who's ever showed any interest in what I'm doing at all. And I will email them and let them know, hey, this is about to happen. Do you want me to keep you, add you to the list for all of the updates as everything happens? And that gets me my first really enthusiastic bunch of people who want to know the second the campaign launches. So you're building that enthusiasm before you even hit go on Seed and Spark or Kickstarter. Another thing that we did that was really successful with the podcast was that we teased it a lot before we launched it. So we made, videos that teased it and little graphics that teased it. And, when we recorded our intro video that goes on the campaign page, we did a bloopers behind the scenes little clip that kind of gave you little tiny glimpses into what we were doing. So there was a lot of excitement before we even launched that campaign of what are you guys doing? What is even happening here? So people were paying attention before we even let people know hey, we're announcing a podcast and here's the crowdfunding campaign for that. And don't be afraid to ask people I know a lot of people really hate asking for money and it's awkward, but people want to support you, especially the people in your life. And you really never know who the people you wouldn't expect come out of the woodwork. Someone I haven't spoken to in years is one of my most excited supporters in anything that I'm doing. And even though we haven't interacted in years, I know that anytime I'm doing any kind of crowdfunding, anything, she's going to be right there on top of it. She's going to donate money. She's going to share posts. She's going to be a huge cheerleader for it. So you never know until you give people the opportunity to support you, and people want to. It's not asking for them to give you something that's too much for them. People want to be given the opportunity to support you in what you're doing.
I like that a lot. Given the opportunities to support you. That's a great way of putting it, rather than begging for money, right? Yeah. It's all in how you frame it.
Let them be a part of it.
Yeah, it's all how you frame it. That's right.
Yeah, legit. So I actually wanted to, now that you said the aerial dancing thing, I wanted to ask you about that. Do you still do that?
As much as I can. Now that I don't run school, I don't have as easy access to it. My last apartment, I actually had a rig in my living room, and I just moved, so now I really don't have any kind of access to it. But it's something I still love.
You mentioned that earlier, and you mentioned when I used to run the circus, and I was just wait, bury that lead. We got to come back to that.
Yeah, there's so much. Every time I used to watch your videos all the time of the aerial dancing thing, because and it reminds me of Pink, of course. Which I think you were doing it before Pink started doing it in her concerts. So she may have taken a page out of your book. I'm not sure.
We'll say that.
Well, Seattle is a really big, it was about the same time. Circus started becoming a thing about the same time for everybody. And Seattle is a really big circus city. So there were a lot of opportunities to learn and meet aerialists and stuff. Yeah. And it's another form of storytelling as far as I'm concerned, circus performing. And is a really powerful outlet for a lot of people who don't really necessarily have a voice in other places. It really attracts a lot of misfits and outsiders and people coming to this is my place where I can own my narrative and own my body and put that out on stage for people. So for me, it's just another form of storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. Do you ever think about integrating that world into your films?
It's going to happen. I have a script for a short that I've been applying for grant funds for that we haven't gotten the money for yet, but I do want to do it at some point. And I have a couple of ideas that I want to do as features eventually, but I'm currently in the process of trying to get my first feature made, and doing something with aerialist is definitely going to require a bigger budget than I can wrangle right there.
Tell us about your first feature.
Yeah, I am in pre-production on a really twisted, surreal, psychological horror feature.
Right up your alley.
Right in the middle of casting right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're casting right
Yeah,
now?
we're in the middle of cast right now. Yeah, I've been taking meetings with a bunch of actors, which has been such a trip. The script has gotten such a huge enthusiastic response from like bigger name actors than we were ever expecting.
That's awesome.
So I'm getting to meet actors that I really admire, and it's kind of just like, even though I can only hire like 2 of them for the 2 roles, it's such an honor to get to meet these amazing women and like talk to them about, their past roles, and they all have such interesting insights into the characters that it's been a lot of fun to just like dive into the psychology with all these different people that have their own distinct takes on these characters that I wrote.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I always enjoy that about the casting process. I feel like I always learn more about my characters when I'm doing the casting by what people bring to it. And, but I can't imagine having that on the level of like meeting with, A-listers. Yeah. Shall we say A-listers?
I'm not talking A-listers yet, but like really emerging and up and coming actors whose careers I followed for years,
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a great experience so far.
Yeah. Very cool.
Hopefully there'll be announcements in the new year on that.
I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'd be remiss without mentioning, you are coming to us from LA, and just this past week, an amazing giant in the industry was just tragically murdered along with his wife. Of course, we're talking about Rob Reiner and his incredible contributions to television, movies, just act like in front of and behind. And he would just like pop up in all these random places. Like I was watching New Girl, the series, and he came on with Jamie Lee Curtis as like, Zoe's parents. And I was just like, just like random stuff like that. But, all I've been reading about all week has just been how gracious and how amazingly generous he was as a professional, and how he made everybody feel. And of course, we didn't have the opportunity to work with him, but or meet him, but just how generous he was, and I just my going all the way back to Meathead from All in the Family, that being my first Rob Reiner introduction. Yeah. But, you have to stop and think, as a filmmaker, when, you hear something just so horrendous happening, and then really just kind of just taking pause and just, I guess being grateful for what you do, and, hoping that, the work that you do will touch people the way that Rob has touched so many people.
Yeah. But what a sad, awful end to a really prolific career, and also a person who put his money where the liberals are.
Yeah.
Behind the good people.
He did.
Yeah.
I mean, anything coming out of this situation, the fact that people are celebrating his legacy, and not just as a filmmaker, but as a human being and as an activist, and the impact he had, on people's lives through his work, but also through actually standing up and supporting, issues that he cared really passionately about. Like, we can hope as filmmakers that when we go, however we go, whenever we go, we can leave behind, some kind of very real, meaningful impact.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, you have this, this feature that, we'll be learning more about.
Yeah. Can you give us a log line?
Starring and.
I don't know.
It's all top secret.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much right now. I will say it is a very unexpected take on pregnancy horror with a lot of Alice in Wonderland and a little bit of Appalachian folklore thrown in for fun.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Sounds cool.
Wow. Yeah. I don't even know what to make of that in my mind. When you said like the horror, you mentioned like, the pregnancy, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that horrific moment couple of times. What is your go-to genre? Like, what are you most interested in creating as a filmmaker?
So everything I write tends to be really dark genre.
Okay.
I've been writing a lot of horror recently. I feel like just the state of the world has got me really pushing into the horror world, but I've always been a huge horror fan. But I also write a lot of sci-fi and crime thrillers. A lot of what I write ends up being inspired by really strange true stories. The pregnancy horror is inspired by an incredibly strange true crime situation that happened only a year and a half ago, so it's really recent. But a lot of my scripts end up being very, very loosely inspired by just incredibly strange things that happen in the real world. And I think, real stories that happen every day that we don't necessarily hear about are just fascinating examples of like human psychology and just the ways in which we bump up against each other and impact each other's lives and can completely distort reality when we really want to.
You should have a 20-part series after this year since January 20th. But we're not getting political.
No, we can't. We're not allowed to be political.
We're not allowed to be political. I think that's
politics comes into everything I write.
Yeah. Exactly.
We exist inside a context, and that context is inherently political. It's kind of impossible to tell stories that aren't political in some way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah.
I think we're just not allowed to talk about, who.
Sure.
The big bad.
We'll get specific.
Now, you mentioned, crime. I watch a lot of true crime drama, much to my husband's chagrin, because I think that one day he thinks I'm just going to wake up one day and be like, I figured it out. But I watch a lot of, I grew up Dateline, but there's like a million different things that you can watch right now. And one of the things that's always been like very fascinating to me is the mind, is really how the criminal mind works. Yeah. And I'm wondering if that's like something that inspires us. You like figures like, well, did you really have to chop her up into 49 pieces? Like, why? What is it about that, that kind of you look at, or you watch, or you see, and you're like, all right, I got to do something with this.
Yeah, I think it's a lot bigger than even just the criminal mind. Like, I think human psychology and human experience is so complex that even people that you wouldn't necessarily consider criminal can do incredibly bizarre things, and just the ways that we interact with each other can play out in really strange and dynamic ways. And there's also some, not to get too political, but I have a true crime project that I'm working on where it really is about the psychology and overreach of law enforcement, of just like their perspective on a situation that they assumed had to be this like incredible like criminal organization, because they couldn't understand that a group of artists were just doing something that they were passionate about for each other without it being some kind of criminal organization.
Yeah.
So it's just like kind of where differing realities collide with each other.
Yeah.
And the chaos that can create. And saying that, I realized like one of my favorite authors is Salman Rushdie, and all of his books really are the collision of realities that cannot coexist without attempting to tear each other apart. And I think that has kind of bled into a lot of the kinds of stories that I tell as well.
I met him.
And there is definitely like that magical realism element too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I met him. I was a producer for a news talk show for many years, way too many years. And he was giving a talk at Harvard, and he came over and he did the show Greater Boston with Emily Rooney. And the I have to say, at the time, the amount of people that showed up, that you know, people from legal, people from accounting, people, you know, everybody just wanted to come. But because it was, you know, he's just been able, you know, to, like you said, been able to just kind of write and really almost expose life the way it should be exposed, but at his, you know, at fear of possibly, you know, one day losing his life. And but yeah,
he got shot, right? He lost his one eye, right?
Yeah.
He was attacked on stage and lost his eye.
Yeah, there was a fatwa.
Yeah, and I mean that's absolutely a testament to the power of storytelling, that it can have that intense impact, like global impact, just from telling stories.
You know, you mentioned about, you know, how this idea about, like, you know, law enforcement or, you know, politicians, whatever, not really kind of understanding what to do with artists. And I can't help but think back to, you know, the early 80s and going into the 90s, when, you know, breakdancing and graffiti artists and all these wonderful, amazing expressions of the body and the mind were coming about, and no one knew what to do with them. You know, even New York, I remember going, you know, having like this extraordinary, like, legal, like, oh, we're going to shut them down and we're going to throw them in jail, and really not really kind of understanding what to do. And of course, that's been portrayed in a lot of films and documentaries as well. But really, it's just, you know, this idea of where do you put it? Right. And then how do you tell that story? Because there's so much that we don't understand. And I think that, you know, we're so much, I think we're so much closer together ideologically than we give ourselves credit for, but it's just all these rigid kind of idea, well, you have to be this and you have to be this and you have to be this. And then of course, you know, and then here we are with a new ballroom about to be
erected.
I like that word, erected.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's interesting that you bring up graffiti, because I actually spent a year traveling around the world and I was documenting street art all over the world. I'm also a photographer, and I'm absolutely fascinated by street art in particular. And, you know, communities that historically haven't necessarily had access to the kinds of like resources and tools and all the canvases and paints and things, find ways to create art with the canvases that they have available to them. And that kind of art then becomes criminalized because it's not the correct kind of art to be making. But I find street art in particular to be a really interesting and immediate way of seeing what the public narrative is. And you saw that during COVID. You saw that during the George Floyd protests. The street art, the immediate conversation between artists and the public about what's happening right now in this moment. And I've always really appreciated those like really immediate forms of art that you fall into these like criminalized areas because they don't fall into what's acceptable. I also did a documentary on slam poetry years ago.
Oh yeah, I watched that. Rhapsodus. Yes.
Yeah, Rhapsodus. And we traveled all over the country and we filmed female performance poets specifically that were doing amazing things with slam poetry. One of those was actually Andrea Gibson, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year. You know, she performed for us in an alley in Chicago at, you know, the National.
Are you serious?
They performed for us in an alley behind one of the venues, because Nationals was in Chicago that year, and they wouldn't let us film in the venues, so we had to get the performers to like come outside and like hide from the wind in alleyways, and like the most amazing poetry performances that I've ever seen. Like, it was such an amazing experience, and got to meet so many incredible women who had so many interesting ways of talking about the world and their lives and their experiences and the women in the world, and the ways that women use language. And again, that's not like proper art form, but it's so powerful and so immediate. Just another example of people making art in the ways that are accessible to them.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought that up. I remember watching Rhapsodist, and at that time, I did not know who Andrea Gibson was. But I just watched the doc like a couple of weeks ago. Have you watched it yet?
I don't. I need to, but it's going to break me.
That's how I felt as well. I like put it off, but there's such profound beauty in the relationship between those two women and between how Andrea views the world and the way they give each other space and also hold each other. I was like, of course I was bawling and I knew that was going to happen. And I did the same thing. I'm like, I can't watch this. It's just too much. And, oh my gosh, what an amazing film. What an amazing life.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea is definitely like same with Rob Reiner, you know, someone who really used their life to leave a legacy and to impact people in a positive way. Like, it was interesting. I was actually back in Chicago when I found out that Andrea passed. And, you know, just seeing the tributes to their life coming out in that moment, they still felt so alive.
Yeah.
Because of their impact was still so alive, and everyone who had ever seen them performed or even seen, you know, their videos on Instagram, like they are still very much alive in the world right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's very true. And it's extraordinary to me that there can be someone like that in the world at the same time we have the other things that we have in the world. Like, how does that happen? And they're not here anymore, and they should be here still, you know, like, I don't know. It's just, there's a part in the movie that, where, they're talking about their writing, and Megan is talking about language or something, and Andrea says, I know 5 words, and I'm really good at doing a lot of things with those 5 words. You know, like 1 billion words. So your stuff is, it was so funny, but it was so like poignant and real, and it speaks to ideas about language and about what language is and what language can do and how do we mobilize language. And, you know, I mean, obviously Andrea knows more than 5 words, but it was the point they were making was so salient, you know, that it's not really about like being an all-knowing language, you know.
It's what you do with the words that you have.
Yeah. It was great.
Same thing with graffiti.
Yes.
The tools that you have access to, you can make an incredible impact. You don't have to be the most educated, or you don't have a thesaurus of vocabulary at your beck and call. If you have something to say, whatever your art form is, you should be saying it, because if it matters to you, it's going to matter to someone else too.
Yeah.
You know, I was watching something that just kind of really messed with my spirit and the other night. And then I went upstairs and, you know, put Netflix on looking for something just ridiculous to get me to sleep. And I saw the documentary Masaka Kids. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but it is an orphanage in an area in Uganda, and these kids' dance videos have gone like beyond viral.
Oh, that's
like,
so cool.
Beyond viral. And so there's a documentary now, and just watching and these kids came from unimaginable situations. Like this area in Uganda, I guess per capita has the highest rate of HIV related deaths. And then of course, COVID just absolutely orphaned like all of these children, and this beautiful couple creates this space for them, and through music these kids just learn and love dance and are just and their faces and their smiles, and and so when you talk about expression, and whether we are making films, or we are doing graffiti art or spoken word poetry or music or whatever it is, it's just it exudes through them, and I'm like watching it, and I'm smiling, but I'm crying, because it was just the beauty of it all, right? And this is why we do what we do. And V's going to try and get that filmmaker on as well. But just really kind of, it just really made me feel good, in spite of just all the horrible news that we've had since this weekend, that there's just a place where, there's still a space where we can make people smile. And I think that's, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Gosh, I'm about to make myself cry.
Okay. So while Tony cries.
I just kind of going back to your film, and just how it is that you used so much sound and space in that film that really resonated with me. And I guess, my question would be is like, what is, do you have like a specific, every filmmaker has like their thing, Spike Lee, it's the double dolly effect, right? It's like, what is your thing as a filmmaker that you feel like, you have to have in your films?
Probably the one thing that definitely influences how I make my films the most is my background as an editor. Because I've been an editor for 20 plus years at this point. I write like an editor. I direct like an editor. Like I know how, excuse me. I know how my scenes are going to transition from each other. There's a lot of like really interwoven visual language with the way that I write and shoot things. When people read my scripts, I'll often get the comment back from them that they can see it reading the script, which isn't always the case when you're reading a script, right. But like really visually see the story just from what's on the page. And I think, I've been an editor for 20 plus years. I was a DP for a decade before I started directing, and all of those things kind of feed into how I construct my scenes, even from the very first like page writing it all the way to like how I do the final edit. So I don't know if that really answers your question. If there's a specific thing that is like my signature.
Yeah.
There tends to be kind of a dreamy quality, I think, to a lot of my work.
Yep.
I tend to get very close up in people's faces. I noticed in my two most recent short films, there was a lot of the actor looking directly into the camera and like really confronting the audience at really pivotal moments. And I'm sorry, there are a lot of moments when the character is looking directly into the camera, because I wanted it to be really confrontational with the audience, and like especially that moment where she looks into the camera and says, "What do you want from me?"
Yeah.
That really is a question for the audience of like, what is it as we as a society want from women, expect from women? And there was a reason that I stayed on that shot for so long and didn't cut away and let that question hang in the air, to the point where when we were shooting the scene and I just let it sit there after I finally said cut, Finnerty was just like, that was so long. It's gotta feel painful. Like you have to take a minute and like really think that question.
Yeah.
And my other short film, Rage, there's an absolutely pivotal moment where the main character, one of the two main characters, really has to confront his past and what he's done, and he just looks straight into the camera, and he's really seeing himself for the first time. But he's also make eye contact with the audience in that moment, so like none of you can look away from that like truth that he's having to face about himself in that particular moment. So that might be I don't know.
No, that's
we'll see how the rest of my films go if that becomes a thing.
I think when I watch, I'm sorry, I could tell very much that you came from being a DP. Like the visual texture of the film is so rich that it like you could just see the those gears, those DP gears turning. So is it hard for you to direct and not shoot, to let someone else run the camera?
No, I don't want to do both at the same time. If I'm directing, I want to be focused on working with the actors and working on performance and being really available for that.
Yep.
If I were trying to shoot, I have been in situations where I've ended up having to be the one shooting and directing at the same time, and it's just harder to be really present for the actors when you're also juggling all the like technical issues, dealing with the camera and getting the shot. And but I am very particular about the DPs that I work with, and finding DPs that have like a shared visual language with me. I've worked a lot with one particular DP, who he and I actually came up as DPs together years and years ago. And then when I switched to directing, he was the primary DP that I would work with for like the last 15 some years. So, having that like shared visual language, but also like shared shorthand of how we communicate with each other. Like the fact that I know that if I need to step out of the room, when I come back, he'll have the shot set up the way that I would have set it up myself.
Yeah.
It definitely makes me a lot more particular about what DPs I work with.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I am so specific about the way I like things shot. And that's not the case for all directors at all. Like I've talked to other directors who I'm very good friends with, who are amazing directors, who definitely let their DPs take a lot more of the lead on the visual side, and they focus on the actors and performers, which I find interesting. Like every director has their own relationship with their department heads. That's going to change, like who takes on what responsibilities and who does what where within the dynamic, which is why I think a lot of people end up working with the same people over and over and over again.
Oh,
you build that really specific community that is your team that you work with from project to project to project.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, you have a good team.
Yes, you do.
Thank you.
Yes, you do. And we're really, really super excited about what's going to come up next year, and we'll have to have you back to
to talk about the feature,
and the casting. And
once that's this time next year, we can chat again. Hopefully,
sounds like a plan.
Yeah, legit.
Goldie, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you like this, and the best of luck with your continued work. And tell folks where can they see your work? Where can they find your artistic visions?
Well, I am on Instagram and TikTok. I give a lot of advice and tips and tricks about screenwriting and filmmaking on TikTok right now. My handle is Glitch Gestalt Girl, which I'm sorry, I know that's complicated.
That's
okay.
It's pretty good though.
That's my handle.
That's pretty good.
Got it. All right.
That's my handle across media. Those would probably be the main places for now.
All right.
Cool.
Well, happy holidays. And
you forgot to ask the advice question, the last question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gosh.
All right.
Do it.
Gosh, she yells at me all the time.
Yeah,
That's got to change in the new year. I'm just saying. Yes, that golden nugget you could drop to a filmmaker watching, maybe a director editor watching. What would be that one thing?
The piece of advice.
I think my biggest piece of advice is don't wait until you're ready. If there's something you want to do, just do it. You're never going to be ready. You're never going to be perfectly ready for it. And you will learn more by just doing it than you will ever do trying to get yourself ready to do the thing. I wish I had started making narrative films much sooner. But people kept telling me, you're not ready for that. You're not ready for that. I don't know. I kind of feel like I am, though. So just believe yourself over other people, and don't wait to be ready, and just do the thing you want to do. Get better, do it better next time, and just keep doing it.
As my granddaughter would say,
That's great advice.
Goldie, thank you so much. That is fantastic advice. And yes, we will have you back on next year, same time. And we wish you and yours a wonderful holiday. And thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you. And it's great to see you again. What did Seth say when he got here? What was that? That was hilarious. Oh, yeah. He asked if you were telling him he smelled like a dog.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That we got to set that up much better than that.
Oh, man.
So Seth comes in, right? Hey, guys, whatever. And
my dog comes downstairs.
Yeah, and Cassie really likes Seth or follows him, and Greg's like, "What the heck? Why is Cassidy like him?"
Chassis.
So, I'm sorry, Chassis. Why does what the fuck you name a dog after a car part? Anyway, it should be Cassidy. Chassis comes down the stairs and is all excited, and Greg yells, "Why does Chassis like that guy?" Does he know Seth's name?
Yeah.
Okay. Why does Chassis like Seth so much? And Tony's.
And I said that they have a love-hate relationship because, or it's because Chassis smells a dog. and
Because Cassie smells dog. Or,
Chassis.
Cassie.
And this is so horrible. And so Seth didn't know if I was calling him a dog.
He's like, wait a minute.
Do you know?
And totally deadpan Seth. You know Seth. Wait. Do you know I have a dog? Or was that a really big insult?
No, I did not. I did not say our TD smelled like a dog. Oh my God.
Yes, Seth, you smell like a dog. But he was totally deadpan. Do you know I have a dog? Or is that an insult? Or maybe he called it feedback. Or was that feedback? I don't know. It was funny.
And that's entirely the short of it.
Oh, it so is. Bye-bye.
The short of it is brought to you by the Den Beauty Lounge. Visit thedenbeautylounge.glossgenius.com for more information and book your appointment today.